Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to First Center for Spiritual Living. It's nice to see all of you there. We have a large audience today on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and those of you on Zoom. Any of you who are watching on any of the live platforms can join us in Zoom simply by sending us a message now. Before we start today's lesson, I need to announce the passing of Reverend Joyce Jackson, who passed away yesterday. And we do this with sadness. Joyce has been ill for a while, and it was somewhat of a surprise, even though we knew that she was not in good health lately. So we're going to take a 1-minute break in silence of her memory, and then we're going to start again with today's lesson. So please stay tuned for just a minute. Thank you. Good morning again. Welcome to First Center for Spiritual Living in New York City. Let's start with an opening thought, an opening prayer. There is one loving source, one mind, one divine intelligence. That intelligence is all around us. That intelligence has been here longer than anything that you can imagine, before anything. This creative intelligence is part of us. We are connected to it, and we came out of it. Therefore, right now in consciousness, we know the I amness in us, and goes forth to does the work, outpicturing all of our desires in love and in peace, and therefore in peace for the world. And so it is. We recognize in our teaching our word. Our word is our belief. It's truly the law of our life. We release any belief not in keeping with our divine identity and the perfect idea of ourselves. We are made in the image and likeness of Source, of God. That indeed, that force, that intelligence is the life force within us, is spirit made manifest. We celebrate then being made in that image and in that likeness. And in that consciousness, we can look beyond whatever may be going on in our lives and our world and allow ourselves to feel the consciousness of inner peace, perfect balance, and perfect harmony. Knowing then it is done unto us as we believe, we choose to become peacemakers in our own lives and in the world, lifters always. By letting the light and the truth of inner peace, inner joy, and inner wisdom permeate our being and emanate from us, we then celebrate that outer peace, and we know that it begins with each of us. We celebrate knowing that inner peace is the divine ideal, and the idea becomes made manifest. And we celebrate being able to release right now any belief, any doubt, anything within us that's unlike peace. Experiencing the peace of God is our only goal in consciousness. With deep sense of connection, we celebrate perfect peace within today. And that there will be perfect peace then, today, tomorrow, and forevermore. And so it is. I was going into some of Dr. Bill's talks and reading books, the book in particular, Spirit by William Edelin. And there were quotes from Edelin about George Washington and some of the founders of our country that were trying to create a democracy that would be different, free from religion, because most of those folks were coming from Europe. And as we all know, there's been lots of wars fought over religion. And so there's a lot of misconceptions about, some people think we were formed as a Christian nation. It was really just the opposite. Those folks were attempting to have a place where we could be free from religion so we could express ourselves however we wanted. When looking for help, George Washington wrote that he would be happy to have Mohammedans, Jewish people, Christians, or atheists working for him. It didn't slightly matter. There was a minister at the time, James Abercrombie, who criticized George Washington endlessly from the pulpit for not kneeling or taking communion when Washington showed up to the church. And once Washington was openly criticized from the pulpit, he walked out, and that was the last time anyone ever found him in any church anywhere. Washington once said, "Religious controversies most always produce irreconcilable hatreds among people." And I was thinking, in my lifetime, I come from the Irish folks. They were killing each other for hundreds of years. And you can go to the Middle East, and we all know what happened throughout the Dark Ages there. Wherever we go, in the celebration of this one God, there seems to be a lot of trouble, and that's what Washington was really saying. There was even a picture, some of you may remember it from your youth, of Washington kneeling in prayer at Valley Forge. Well, here's the thing to tell you, it never happened. He never kneeled at Valley Forge. It was some artist rendering, maybe it was a thought, or that he would be praying. The founders of our country, in trying to create this new kind of government, were clear that there needed to be freedom from religion, freedom to think and to reason and to pray or not to pray. In other words, spiritual as they all were, and they all seem to be as we read about them, with their various beliefs in various churches, religion would not play a big part in establishing the governance of this new country, this democracy, which was imperfect, that we are still trying to perfect all these years later. It seems that they were wanting to avoid some of the things that they had learned in our history, and they mostly came out of Europe. Here's the thing to know about consciousness, in the government, in life, in the world, in me and in you, it's always evolving. Sometimes it steps forward in huge leaps with great ideas, and then there seems to be a retraction. One step forward, one step backwards. But if you can look at things from a distance, it's always improving. And that's something that comforts me, and really something, I know there's another minister locally who was doing a talk today on what's wrong with lots of things in life. And I would posit or pose just the opposite. You can focus on what's wrong, or you can look to the bigger idea. There was a book, The Celestine Prophecy, years ago that I read, which suggested we look at things from a distance. If you can imagine through the mind of God, where if you're in the moment, everything can look like it's terrible. But in every moment, life is evolving and moving forward. And sometimes disturbances and upsets really are stepping stones in our own lives and in the world itself. These disturbances are stepping stones for ourselves to move forward and for others to move forward. So today's lesson was borrowed from a lesson that was done in the 90s, and it's entitled, "I Am Wonderful." And I wonder if you could say that for yourself and by yourself and really feel that. I know some of you can, and some of you might say, "Oh, there he goes again with all this stuff." So now, how do you arrive at a point in your own evolution where you can come from a very valid sense within yourself and embody a deep belief that I'm wonderful. How do you do it without sounding like you're crazy or you're boasting or people think, oh my God, look at this person. How do you do it without sounding like you're full of ego or full of something, without sounding like you're elitist or putting somebody else down? See, you could I'm wonderful, then they're going to think, well, who is he or who is she and all that stuff, right? Well, it seems to me we don't really announce that we are wonderful so much with our words. Rather, we announce it with our presence and the energy that flows out of us, that thing that comes out of us. Because if you got it, you got it. And if you're connecting with Source, and most of my talks are really about learning to be and live in connection. So if you're living in connection, you got it, you have it. You can't lose, as Dr. Ike used to say, with the stuff we use. So it isn't necessarily about anything you articulate. It isn't even about the way you present yourself. You can get all dressed up or being comfortable in your clothes or out of your clothes. It isn't about that. What it is an inner awareness at the deepest level of our being, that we are wonderful. Now, I would say that we're no better than anyone else, so we're not saying that we're superior. It isn't about that. We might, in this teaching, come to know we're wonderful, but hopefully nobody feels like we're superior or better than anybody else. We say that everybody is made in the image and likeness of God. I believe that. I'm sure most of you do. Most of us sense that and are in agreement with that. And then to be clear, I would add to that, I'm no better than anyone who does this or prays this way or prays that way or whatever way they pray, like the founders of the country. I'm supporting you to pray in any kind of way you want to pray and go where you want to go and do what you want to do. That comes from a song from when I was a teenager. Because if we're comparing ourselves to other people, I have more of this and have less of that. When we do any of that stuff, we are always going to come up short. So making comparisons is a trap. And it's a game that none of us who have any sense of enlightenment really want to be involved in. We give. I'm a giver. You're a giver. We give what we want to give. We want to support the church or anything else we do. We give what we want to give and we do what we want to do. Hopefully because we want to and because we choose to. I don't want to use anything as any methodology where I judge myself or put myself down. And I suggest in every single Thursday class where we teach the Louise material to stop the judging of ourselves. Bill Tolliver used to say, there is nobody nicer to be nicer to than you. So get that conversation up. Begin finding ways, as Louise would say, to approve of yourself. I love, accept, and approve of myself. My God, I've heard that 1,000 times over the years. And it sounds silly, but it's such an important thing to be saying because there's this inner critic that's relentlessly tearing us down. And that all emanates from stuff that we learned as kids that we have reinforced endlessly over the years. So criticizing ourselves won't work. Really what it does is if you have all that going on, you're criticizing everyone else and your whole life is full of contraction and judgment. Stop judging others. Stop judging yourself. In the classes on Thursday, every Thursday at 7, we say, stop in the name of love. Stop the judging, stop the criticizing, because we all come up short from time to time. I can look at my weeks and I can see where I have missed the mark, and that's our definition. If there is a sin, it's where we just forget and we react. You know, we can always find somebody that has more of everything than we do. Maybe it's better health, more wealth. They might be more handsome. Bill Tolliver said, Harte, that would be hard for me to believe, but they might be, right? Or they might, They could be more loving or more gentle, more creative, have a greater sense of depth, or be more talented. There are infinite numbers of ways that I can compare myself to others, and it always is it's a thing that you don't really want to be doing. It's a methodology for putting yourself down ultimately, or feeling superior, and it's not necessary. So whatever people are doing, honest to God, let it go. Stop. Stop comparing. Stop judging yourself. Make a decision and stick with that one. Now, let us move to a statement of truth. There's facts, and then there are truths with a capital T. I want to welcome the new viewers again on the call today. They're in the hundreds, and I know it, and I wish you could jump over to the Zoom call, send us a link, and then you can have a more intimate time with us. You have an opportunity to hear people share. You can share yourself if you like. And as you join in, you will learn that our teaching doesn't have a liturgy. It doesn't have a bunch of religious theology to keep you trapped in any way, in any kind of bondage or fear. Quite honestly, it's just the opposite with us. We don't have much of any of that. There is no structured theology here. There's no dogmatic limits, and there's no absolute truths that we teach you to obey. There's nothing to recite. Nothing is required to be adhered to or memorized. We don't use biblical or scriptures as authority, except we use them maybe in a casual sense to teach a point, to do something that will kindle or inspire a truth within us. We, in this teaching, believe that we're born in freedom, and we have our own unique and individual consciousness coming out of that freedom, out of that flow of universal energy and consciousness. We awaken to the fact that there is no authority, nothing up above or outside of us, that we draw upon to justify anything we do. No one up there, no one out there judging or rescuing us. There's no reason to justify what we do or what we don't do, except, of course, to ourselves. In truth, there is nothing outside of you. You are an inlet and outlet of this divine energy. All the power there is within you. And it is my hope today that each of you are beginning to awaken to that divine fact. We're really, in a way, kind of naked, as it were, in consciousness. We don't depend upon anything up there and out there except principles that we teach. It's with these principles such as peace, power, love, beauty, wisdom, and the embodiment of these principles to one degree or another, that we can arrive at valid statements such as today's, I am wonderful. Let's start with the basic concept. Metaphysics 101, if you will. We can call it that. Everything is created by God. Or if you don't like that word, everything comes out of source. Not part of the things, but everything is created by it. We can call it God, we can call it whatever we want to. God in what, you might ask? And we will say, God in nothing. Everything is made and comes out of God. It's not God in dirt, not God in dust, not God in sticks and stones, not God in mud. Everything comes out of God. And I know that's a word that's loaded for many. So everything comes out of this energy, right? Everything comes out of this source energy. So we have this creative process where everything comes out of it. This source makes things, obviously. Look around. Here I am, here you are, here's everything. And it all comes out of this divine substance. That consciousness becomes aware of itself by some interaction of creation. This is the great mystery of life that every single religion in some way has attempted to explain, and then they put it into some type of dogma over years. It's a simple thing that they grapple with, they try to explain, and then we have all the dogmas of the world. But in fact, it's the great mystery that no one can really explain. See, the only way ever really that we can get a glimpse of this wonderful mystery is in its manifestation. When I can look in this room and I can see you people who are alive beings, full of life and wonder, it ought to take my breath away. It's just the fact that you're here, living and breathing and expressing life. So we can get a glimpse of this wonderful mystery in its manifestation as what we call the multiplicity of all the forms and all the structures, the lives I see in this room and the lives that I know and the people that you can imagine all over the world, because all of these things were created out of this cosmic goodness, this cosmic energy, the absolute givingness, the essence of whatever it may be called. It all comes from this. And when we say from a biblical point of view that we're made in the image and likeness of God, certainly what we must be saying, as I understand it at least, the material from every source is that we're not talking about a personal being with a face and body. Most of us have given up on the idea of there being some guy up in the sky with a long beard and all of that. Rather, we're talking about the essence. We're talking about the energy. We're talking about a presence, a consciousness, and that is what we are. And our bodies and our personalities are simply the vehicles through which we express all of that. And I will tell you today that we are different in this teaching. We're very different, and we are differentiated. We are different from a lot of ordinary people who are involved in ordinary religions. We are different from people who have liturgy and lots of rules and things they can cling to. We're different from people who have a lot of religious structure. We are different from people who do worship services. We are different from people who require absolute adherence to a particular set of beliefs. Now, that doesn't make us in any way better. Again, I'm wonderful, but I'm not necessarily what? Better than anyone. Doesn't make us better. And it doesn't make them bad, it doesn't make them worse, it doesn't make us right, and it doesn't make them wrong. It just makes us a little different. You are different, and you know this, I'm sure most of you. And I, for one, can feel that difference. We know and we know that we know, right? And at the same time that we're different, we live in this unifying field, this oneness of consciousness that's spreading and spreading throughout the world to every people and every person everywhere. And this thing, this consciousness that permeates all and transcends everything, increasingly transcends the old religions and tears down the divisions and moves forward ever so slowly, it seems, right? Younger generations give up a lot of the grievances of the previous ones. And we're evolving, thankfully, evolving in light. They're letting go of the grievances of old, the differences, the old fights, the rules that keep everyone separate. Because this presence, this life, as we know it, is essentially dealing with our humanness, our divineness, the divinity of every human being. And every human being, we understand who have the gift of this teaching, every human being is wonderful. Every human being is alive, has that spark of God within them. And every human being in that sense is truly a miracle. The great mystery of consciousness is that everything is creating itself out of it and becoming that which it created. And since it's infinite, it remains infinite. While being infinitely all that I am and while being all that you are. So each of you are filled with God life. Miracles, if you will. So we can feel at the deepest level of our being, each one of us, a sense of wonder if we want to. if you want to wake up enough and realize who you are, it's very exciting. And we can have a sense of awe that we don't really understand all of it. But we know that there is this magnificent creative process that we see everywhere, and we know it's within us. We have heard, we're going back to the Bible now, we have heard, by their fruit shall you know them. We know that it is a wonderful process to evolve, to hitch our wagon to stars and to step up out of the old, the things we knew as when we were younger. By their fruit you shall know them. So we can step up and step out of anything that binds us. And the only way that we know anything about the essence of this process is to see and look at the fruits. There was a song, every corner of creation reaches out. It's there. You can see it everywhere if you have the eyes to see. Look at everybody on the earth. Look at the earth itself and everything in it. Imagine, if you will, the stars and the galaxies and the planets and the sun and our moon. Imagine all of it, the grandeur, just the sheer, it's breathtaking. And I don't choose for one moment to claim that I or anyone in our teaching understands all of it. I certainly have never heard or read any explanation in philosophy or theology that satisfied me more than the concept of whatever the divine is, it's in me, as me, being me. My logic tells me it has to be that way. It's in me, operating through me, as me. As I expand my consciousness, my world changes. As I keep going with the limited thinking, keeps me back. Louise Hay, our most famous student, was fond of saying it's all very simple. My very simple analysis tells me that it must be so. Simple. There could be no other explanation than that the cosmic, the divine, the absolute essence of everything is, by some inner act upon itself, creating. I don't know why, I have no idea, and I don't think anybody else does either. They have ideas that might be right for them, but certainly not in terms of my understanding. And it might be wonderful for them, whatever they may be thinking, and I'd be celebrating their right to think whatever they may be thinking. But I'm here to tell you, in this teaching, I feel so nourished and challenged at the same time by the awareness that whatever this thing is that we call God or Source created me in its image and likeness. And then it gave me some rather interesting dominion. Beyond dominion over animals and things like that, it gave me dominion over my own thoughts. It gave me dominion, it gave me the ability to choose, and cherish your ability to choose and to think. And it gave it to you also, and you can sit there this morning in absolute freedom, and you can hold on to your old beliefs if you want to. I might add it's not particularly intelligent to hang on to the old, but you can. Or you can expand your belief, you can replace your belief, you can negate your belief, you can supplant your belief, you can contradict your belief, you can drop your belief. You could become nihilistic and believe in nothing, or you can become agnostic. You can do anything that you choose to do with your belief. It's always up for you to decide. As my mother always said to me, it's entirely up to you. And it's wonderful that you believe what is that you believe. Furthermore, we celebrate that. We're not trying to convert anybody here, never have been. It's wonderful because the law of life says that it's being done unto you as you believe. And it's even more wonderful because when we find out that the laws are very precise, they're mathematical, they're intelligent laws, and these laws are no respecter of persons, places, or things. And anybody can use the law consciously, or they can choose to completely ignore it. So we have the ability to input and to lift ourselves up and go far in life. We can input into this law and we can know that it acts upon it. And We don't know how any of it works any more than you do. We don't know how the creative process works. All we know in our own lives through our own practice is that it does work. And that it's done unto us as we believe, or done unto me as I believe. And my beliefs, like yours, hopefully, are becoming more and more wondrous about who I am and who you are. Louise Hay wrote a wonderful book, circled the globe, an important book, one of the biggest bestsellers of all time, and about learning to love ourselves and to have a sense of the wondrous in you, and learning to love and elevate yourself. So when we talk about being wonderful and all of that, we want to be a little bit careful. I think it is my belief that we have to be careful that this thing doesn't become a big ego thing, a bunch of puffery, but rather this consciousness can transform any sense that you might have of being a victim, not good enough. This consciousness can transform any idea of poor little me or poor me. This consciousness can transform any idea that my life doesn't count or doesn't matter, or that I'm just some cosmic speck of dust, that I'm nothing, that I don't have impact or value. This consciousness can transcend every limitation. Any idea that I can't go forward, it's too late, or I'm too old, or anything. This consciousness can transform anything. And it allows us, hopefully, to see that we have a beautiful gift to believe whatever we want to believe, that we are part of this creative process. Now, I would ask you in your wondrousness to challenge everything you believe. And to never again accept anything as truth with a capital T, that's anything that's going to put you down, anything that puts you in a position of being ignorant. I mean, we're here to grow, and hopefully we're open to new information all the time. For anybody who's got the consciousness of, listen, don't confuse me with the facts, I don't want to know anything. That's not an intelligent place to come from, right? Spirit is always wooing you and attempting to get your attention. And we're here to learn and grow, so be open, please, to your lessons. If your mind is closed, remains closed, there's no new thought, then you're going to keep creating the same old stuff because you have the same old ideas. And it's like, it's too bad, but that's, of course, entirely up to you. Are you a person who thinks, I don't want to know about this, I don't want to know about that, I don't want to hear about this, I don't want to hear about that? And then you start complaining all over the place about what's happening. That's not real smart, right? A famous talk that Dr. Bill gave in the 90s, which got everyone's attention, put it on the marquee of the church. He said, "Don't die dumb." And we thought he was unbelievable, but he was really attempting to get our attention. I mean, you can keep doing the same stuff you've always done that produces pain, but is it intelligent? You and I have choices to make, thankfully, and we know we have choices to make. Today, I'd like you to take on the idea of I am wonderful. Take it on, let yourself feel it, right? I am wonderful. Try it on. Say it to yourself right now in your own minds, all you hundreds of people listening everywhere. I am wonderful, and let yourself feel that. And if it feels weird to you, then there's some work there for you to do. Because if you find yourself, oh my God, I don't feel that way, or he's crazy, I'm trying to push it a little bit today. So when we wake up in the morning, we can choose. We can choose to transcend the consciousness, oh, I'm getting up on the wrong side of the bed again, ain't it awful? And we can choose to transcend any of all that stuff. We can absolutely choose to be in a new moment, and we can stop all that negative chatter. We can stop all the talking about what's wrong with the economy, the raising prices, the government. We can stop it. We can stop talking about what we don't have and what is missing. So let's start really developing a positive expectancy each morning. That's where it's a good place to start. Of course, if you've kind of like ruined your day, you can stop wherever you are in the name of love and get your bearings and tell yourself you're supplied and supported and start in any new moment. But let's start with the morning. Get out of bed, and if you're on the wrong side of the bed, go on the other side of the bed. So let's stop ourselves when we see ourselves in any kind of tale of woe, wherever we're doing the Chicken Little stuff. You know, the sky is falling. Stop when you find yourself doing that, because you're really spinning and you're creating it. You're creating your own world. There's an example from one of my teachers. Think of yourself as an artist, and you have this palette, right? And you have all kinds of colors, every color of the rainbow, and you have this beautiful blank palace. And you wake up in the morning, and you have all these colors at your disposal. You have a pail of white paint, you have tools and all kinds of things. And you can paint your day any kind of way you want to. You get to paint or create your day. Here's the thing. If you're creating it and it looks like you've just created one big mess, that's not the end of everything, right? You've got this paint down here, this can of primer, this white paint. So you can paint that canvas and paint any of that out and start the process all over again. And you can keep doing this and repeating this day after day after day. Now I ask you, do you want to be that artist with the power and the authority to create experiences to the greatest degree possible? Would you like to have dominion over your own life? Ernest Holmes said there's power available and you can use it. Or do you want to be like painting by numbers or something and not challenging yourself in any way? I don't think many of you who come into a teaching like this are going to hang around in a place like this very long if you're a person who wants to paint by numbers and just keep it all in the lines. Life is changing, and life changes by means of you and me, and everything you can imagine is alive. There's not a thing in this room that isn't brimming with energy. We can be alive in spirit, and we can start again, and we can neutralize all that stuff, all those old ideas, all those present negative ideas. All the negativity can be neutralized, all our judgments and our grievances too. We can paint it all out, and we can start again. And the energy is your thought, your belief, and your feelings. First of all, about who you are as an individual. In comes Louise. Hey, I love, accept, and approve of myself. Begin there. And then who you are in relationship to everything else and everyone else, and to the one eternal consciousness. You can call it all, whatever you want to call it. We can call it God, Buddha, Allah, Source. It doesn't matter, whatever name. This source really can't be named. It's a presence. It's never an absence. By knowing that name means the nature that we have now done enough work to understand that the God that we celebrate is within. It's not the God necessarily of our childhood. We all know that by now. It's not the God that we learned in Sunday school, not a punishing presence, not the God of retribution, not a God of the just and the unjust, but a loving, giving, compassionate energy. It's interesting to reflect upon all of the various groups, religious groups the world over, that pray to their concept of God, that they will prevail over others because they think that they are right. Nobody here thinks that way. A lot of folks are praying to God to be able to defeat other people, wipe them out, other groups, sports, teams, praying to neutralize others. And see, in humanity, we're all evolving. Spirit is evolving. But that's where many people still are, right? And I think to myself, if there really was some kind of God that was listening to all of that stuff, it must be terribly bored and somewhat annoyed. And all these people praying to have the power and the intelligence and the weaponry to go out and annihilate each other, of course, in the name of God. I mean, that's pretty silly, but that's where people are. So it's no longer a question for me of what I'm willing to die for. It's more of a question, what are you willing to live for? We live the affirmative life. Our preoccupation is seeing the God and the good. That's what we do. Ernest Holmes said, find me one person who's for something and against nothing, and I will have found the Redeemer of my soul. So this is what we are. We are the lifters. We're here to see the good. I recall Dr. Bill, my teacher, one of my teachers, talking about a story, someone coming after him with a service, quoting the Bible and really wanting to make his service wrong, right? And he said, I'm not interested in that. And he says, I didn't even bother responding to this person because it wouldn't have done any good anyway. Because there's a whole bunch of people who are very convinced in their belief, and they're convinced that their belief is right and that mine's wrong. And I don't have that belief at all. I just feel mine is right for me, and I would suggest most of you feel the same way. And anyone else can have whatever belief that they want for themselves. But don't please inflict it upon me. And I will attempt not to inflict mine upon you, was his response. It's not open to discussion. You know, absolute truths, as we perceive them, are not open to discussion. They're not open to being assailed. They're not open to being criticized. They're not open to anything because they are self-evident truths. And the self-evidence comes from the inner awareness, if we trace it right back to the Big Bang or before. Whatever blew it all up, or whatever started it, you know, it goes right back to that. This energy has always been there. You, everybody on this call, and I are its logical extension and evolution. All of you are filled with this God stuff. So whatever this essence is, it's wonderful and you are it. Now, when you begin to embody this consciousness that goes beyond ego, and you still have challenges. You still have occasional illnesses. You might have an accident. You might lose your job. You might have a divorce. You might get married. You might have children, and they may turn out to be great, or they may turn out to be not so great. That's life. But I flat out guarantee you that the consciousness of the individual that is couched in the awareness of a centralized identity that says, I am part and parcel of the most wondrous creative act that anyone could possibly conceive, then whatever life presents to you with that consciousness is going to be handled very differently than the person who has some kind of concept that there's some kind of divine authority that's shooting lightning bolts, or that the dice of God are loaded and the dice are always loaded. The dice of God are always loaded, I'm going to tell you this, in the direction that intelligence always wins. Pure reason and intelligence prevail, and they will prevail in you. You, each of you on the call today, are intelligent. You might say, well, I'm not educated. It doesn't matter. You could be well educated. It has nothing to do with the fact you're still intelligent, because that's part of your identity. You have access to the same creative stuff that all of us do. The same wisdom, the same knowledge. No one has ever prevented you from going to the library. No one has ever prevented you from learning or from getting a book or reading it. No one has ever told you that you cannot meditate and have inner illumination. You, all of you, are intelligent. Some of us have lived out our lives intelligently, but maybe not smartly. Some of us have lived out lives with great repetitive actions of pain, and we've scarcely realized that there was an inner incredible intelligence at work creating it. We may not have been aware that we've been messing up our own lives scientifically, and we didn't even know it. It takes a lot of intelligence and energy and creativity to create massive problems in your life. There's only one intelligence. It's how we use it that confirms that we feel that we're wonderful or we're not wonderful. We have to remember, with infinite intelligence, we can be infinitely ignorant. We can be ignoring, or we can be celebrating life. I think you're wonderful. We'll start to wrap it up a little bit. I think you're wonderful. I think you're absolutely wonderful. How could I not think you're wonderful? If I have any feelings at all about being wonderful myself, I don't want to assault you either with my wonderfulness, nor do I want to assault you. I don't want you to assault me with your wonderfulness. I don't want to hear it articulated even. And I know that as I'm saying it to you this morning, there's a number of you who are uncomfortable having me say it. Saying, I'm wonderful, and saying, you're wonderful. Sometimes it's important for a minister or a teacher to generate a little bit of this discomfort so that you could really begin to flirt with the idea that just maybe that you can carry around a feeling of this inner wonderment and in gratitude for being how special you really are and different. You are different. You are differentiated. I am an individualization of source energy. Now, the universe created out of itself a multiplicity of everything. It's all the same thing. It's all God, right? But it's different. It's the same thing in its essence, but it's different in its form and structure and personality. It's never dual. It's never God and something else. It's always God. It's differentiated. Duality would say God and I. We don't teach God and I. We teach God. Differentiated means consciousness, God and I, as you, if you're thinking of it that way, then you're creating separation. Differentiation tends to let us see that it's all one, it's all the same thing, and that's wonderful. So that's what you are. You're wonderful, and I tell you that you're wonderful. And you immediately try to qualitatively assess how I can make that value judgment. If I really know your life, you would say, well, I don't have to know your life to know you're wonderful. And I know some of you have a lot of pain and your life seems to be working against you. Even knowing that, I know that you're wonderful. Some of you have a lot of sorrow in your life, and it still doesn't change the fact that you're wonderful. It's appropriate for us, time to time, to feel some fear and disconnect, but it's not appropriate to feel paralyzed by it. It is appropriate from time to time to feel pain. It's not appropriate to let it debilitate you to the point that you lose your sense of self and who you are. And it's appropriate to understand that the human experience has, as a part of its nature, that we're going to have some tough times as we're learning. These tough times are not a reflection of your wonderfulness. They are a reflection of the human condition. And the person who knows that they are wonderful will learn to grow and release and grow and expand, and they will learn to release. Because that's the nature of life. And I think you are wonderful. I think I'm wonderful. Matter of fact, I know you're wonderful. And I'm a little less sure about me, but I'm working on it. So when you go past your ego, because with all the ego stuff, it's a little bit phony. You know that, right? At the core, there's a genuine lovingness that's about us. It's at hand, because all the lovingness that's in us, as Theodora would always talk about, contradicts so much of what we've been taught. So I think you're in a wonderful teaching. You're in a wonderful place to become empowered. You're in a wonderful place to grow and evolve. You're in a wonderful evolution of your own spirit and your own mind and your own consciousness. And we all share that to the degree that we share it. And I think that's wonderful. I think this Center for Spiritual Living is wonderful. I was walking around the building this morning and humming to myself. I love this place. It's a very special place of learning. It always has been. I love this teaching. I love our center. I love the people. So this morning, that was my affirmative prayer. It makes me feel good to come in here this morning, and I love it. And I thought to myself, maybe I would share a bit of that, and maybe I wouldn't, because it seems silly. But I don't feel silly at all. I feel wonderful. And we have such a gift here to share and to teach and reflect back to one another in this very special place. I'm glad you're joining us from wherever you're joining us, and many of you will join us through the week. And send us your messages, and we'll connect with you. And you can become a member or not. It's entirely up to you. You can support us or not. It's entirely up to you. So let's close with a treatment. We are wonderful. We are full of wonder, full of awe, full of gratitude for the glory of God made manifest, the wonderment of consciousness and mind as us, in us, operating through us. We give everybody the freedom to think and decide and feel whatever they choose or claim for themselves, and that's wonderful. In that consciousness, this is a wonderful day, this is a wonderful life, and it's a wonderful place to be. And this is a wonderful day today, tomorrow, and forever. And so it is. Thank you.